You might know him by a few different names: Chanakya, Kautilya, or even Vishnugupta. But what he's really famous for is something absolutely monumental. He built ancient India's largest ever empire. And the most amazing part? He didn't have an army or a crown. All he had was his mind.
Right, so that's the big question, isn't it? We're talking about a time when India was full of warring kingdoms, a real mess of power struggles. So how on earth does one man manage to unify an entire subcontinent? I mean, what was his secret?
Well, the answer is just genius. See, Chanakya figured out he didn't need to be the king himself. No, his masterstroke was to find the right person for the job and then become the ultimate power behind the throne. Okay, so let's dig into this. Who was this man really? Who was Chanakya? And what was it that drove him to literally change the map of India? First things first, Chanakya was a Brahmin, which means he was from the scholarly class. In fact, he was a professor at the legendary Taxila University. But his real claim to fame wasn't just being a scholar. It was being an incredibly sharp political advisor. Now here's where it gets interesting. For someone so important, we don't have a single, straightforward biography of him. His story is like a puzzle, pieced together from all these old Buddhist, Jain, and Kashmiri texts. And honestly, that mix of fact and legend just makes him even more fascinating, don't you think? But, in all these different stories, there's one thing they all agree on. It all started with an insult. Imagine this. Chanakya is publicly humiliated by the powerful King Dhana Nanda. And in that moment of pure rage, he does something incredibly dramatic. He unties his shika, the traditional Brahmin topknot, and makes a vow. He swears he will not tie it back until the entire Nanda Dynasty is completely wiped out. Talk about motivation. But to pull this off, he needed more than just anger. He needed a plan, a brilliant, detailed plan. And that plan, well, it's all laid out in his masterpiece, the Arthashastra. So what is the Arthashastra? Think of it as the ultimate how-to guide for running a country. Seriously. And this isn't just theory, oh no. This is a down-to-earth, sometimes ruthless, manual on how to get power and, more importantly, how to keep it. And when I say it covers everything, I mean everything. You've got your tax policies, how to set up your government, how to deal with other nations, all the standard stuff. But then it dives into the really juicy parts: military tactics, how to build a network of spies, and, yeah, how to eliminate your enemies. The level of detail is just mind-blowing. But then, just when you think it's all about cold, hard power, you come across a line like this. It shows that for Chanakya, the end goal was always the well-being of the people. He truly believed that a strong, stable kingdom was a ruler's duty, even if you had to get your hands dirty to make it happen. And this is one of his most famous ideas, his four-step approach, known as Sam, Dam, Dund, Bathe. It's so logical. First, you try talking, diplomacy. If that doesn't work, offer them something, maybe money. Still no luck? Okay, time for punishment. And if all else fails, you find their weaknesses, you divide them, and you conquer. It's a strategy that, well, it's still used today, isn't it? All right, so Chanakya has the theory, he has the ultimate playbook. Now it's time to put it all into practice. Let's see how this one man's vow of revenge actually led to the creation of an empire. And look, the challenge was just insane. The Nanda army was a massive war machine. We're talking 200,000 soldiers on foot alone, not to mention cavalry and war elephants. And what did Chanakya have to fight them with? Basically just his brain and that fiery vow. So obviously, Chanakya couldn't do this by himself. He needed a frontman, a future king. And the story goes, he finds him in the most amazing way. He spots this young boy, Chandragupta Maurya, just playing a game with his friends where he's the king. And he has this natural air of command. Chanakya saw it right away. That's him. That's my emperor. Okay, but their first try was a total failure. They went straight for the capital and got completely wiped out. And the legend of how they learned their lesson is fantastic. Apparently, Chanakya overheard a mother telling off her son for eating a hotcake from the middle. Eat from the edges first, where it's cool, she said. And for Chanakya, that was a light bulb moment. You don't attack the center of an empire head-on. You start at the edges and slowly close in. And that's exactly what they did. They changed their entire strategy. They took over the outer territories first, one by one, building their army and their support, and then, when the time was right, they finally marched on the capital. And this time, it worked.
Dhana Nanda was gone, Chanakya's vow was complete, and Chandragupta Maurya was now the first emperor of the brand new Mauryan Empire. So the empire is born. But what about Chanakya's legacy? What did he really leave behind? Let's take a look at the master strategist himself. You see, Chanakya was a master of using both hard and soft power. On one hand, you have the tough stuff, military force, punishment, even sabotage. There are even stories of him using these Vishakanyas, poison girls. But on the other hand, he was brilliant at the softer side of things, making deals, building alliances, and using spies to not just get information, but to spread fake news. The man used every trick in the book. This kind of ruthless, practical thinking has led a lot of people to call him the Indian Machiavelli. But here's the kicker. Chanakya was writing his playbook nearly 2,000 years before Machiavelli was even born. Both of them, separated by centuries and continents, came to a very similar conclusion. Sometimes, to achieve a greater good for the state, a ruler has to do things that aren't so nice. So when you boil it all down, what makes a kingmaker like Chanakya? Well, first, he was a visionary. He saw the possibility of a united India. He was a master of spies, an absolute pragmatist. But more than that, he was a patriot, protecting his homeland. And he was an incredible mentor, guiding not just one, but two emperors, Chandragupta and then his son, Bindusara, to make sure the empire he built would last. In the end, Chanakya's story is just incredible. His genius is undeniable, right? He achieved this amazing, noble goal of creating an empire. But the way he did it was often brutal. And that leaves us with a really tough question, one that's just as relevant now as it was thousands of years ago. Do good intentions justify any action? Do the ends really justify the means?